Hello everyone, welcome to the Colour Cave with me, Jem. Today we are just colouring and we are carrying on with this page from Johanna Basford's Ivy and the Inky Butterfly. If you would like to see the first part of this, you can click the card in the corner here and that will take you to the video where I coloured these red and orange flowers, did a bit of blending. So we're going to carry on today, and I've started these two little flowers and that's what we're going to be working on as we go through this video. What I'm going to do is I am going to do this half of the page just to let you see the techniques that I'm using and what I'm doing, and I will leave everyone, if you're following along, because I know some of you like to do the other half yourselves. I just want to thank everyone who left a comment after the last video. I did ask for a little bit of feedback on what you wanted to see, how long the videos were, etc., and I've taken that on board when it's come to filming this. So let us just zoom in slightly and we'll get started. So I'm going to start with these little purple flowers. They are small and there are quite a lot of them, but hopefully it won't take us too long to get through them. Okay, so for these little purple flowers I have Canary Yellow PC116. That's my little pencil that I use a lot. It's a cheery colour, I like it. I also have Yellow Ochre, which is PC942. And for the petals I have Lavender PC934 and I have Dahlia Purple, which is PC1009. And what I'm going to do first of all is I'm just going to work my way around. So I'm starting with my Canary Yellow and I am working in a C shape just round one curve of the innermost part. So I'm leaving a tiny white speck, and again I know it's quite difficult to see on camera, but if I just do that you can see this one that I've already done. So I'm leaving a little circle of white just on one side of that. And now I am going to go with my Dahlia Purple, and using a medium pressure I'm just working my way around the outside of these petals, like so, and gradually lightening my pressure into the middle and not quite joining it up. So I'm leaving that little white stripe down the middle on that first petal. Now I'm just going to go back over that outside again, just make that a little bit darker. One of the things I mentioned last time was that the opposite page to this on this side is full of vibrant colours. I didn't want this page to look sort of washed out next to it. So that's why I'm quite keen on having these sort of vibrant colours, and obviously Prismacolor pencils are really great for that because you can build up a good couple of layers and it's going to give you a really nice deep and rich colour. Now in the centre I'm going to go in with my lavender, and again probably medium pressure. And I'm just going to pop that in the middle and gradually blend in the darker colour from the outside, like so. Now this is one of these ones where I am just using my eye, and if I'm not entirely happy with how dark the outside is I can go back in, because I've not burnished, I've not flattened the tooth of the paper, so I can go back in with my darker pencil and just add that little bit more in to give it a wee bit more depth until I get to the stage where I'm happy. Now obviously I'm taking my time with this first one to explain what I'm doing and show you, but I will speed up as we go around, otherwise we'll be here for about 3 days. I do have a little bit of overlap here and a turned over one, which I'll explain as I go along as well. But for the time being, I'm just going to carry on, and what I'm going to do is I am going to go round the outsides of the rest of the petals within this one flower and get a bit of speed on, I think. I'm very aware when I'm doing this, I'm trying to keep my hand out the way so that you can actually see the pencil laying down on the paper. I always think it's better to have a lighter hand and have to go back over a petal rather than going in too heavy straight off the bat, because you can always build colour up. I know I say this quite a lot, I'm aware I say this a lot, but I do think it's definitely beneficial to be able to go back and build up rather than go in too heavy to begin with and then you're trying to erase things, particularly when you're using dark colours like a dark purple like this. It's very, very difficult to get rid of every trace of it off your paper. I mean, you can still erase it, but it's significantly more difficult than, say, with a colour like the yellow. So there we go. Because this is a slightly broader leaf, I've left more of the white space in the middle. And again, if I'm not happy with it or it doesn't look right, I can always go back in with that darker purple and blend a bit more in once I've put the lavender down. And this is the wonderful thing about Prismacolors. They're so soft and the colour just like, it just smooshes together really well. And I know that's not very scientific or technical, but that's the kind of feeling I get from it. It's smooshy. It is smooshy. And you can see as well that's coming out quite smooth. I did have in the previous video, if some of you haven't seen it, I wasn't too happy with the colour laydown and I was using my blender pencil. I don't think I'll have to do that with these little flowers. I think they're doing just fine on their own. Again, it depends on your preference as well. I tend to, one of the things I like about pencils and one of the reasons that I use them is I actually like the texture that they leave on the paper. And I think it's nice to have a bit of that. Okay, so for this one here that is in behind, I'm just going to fill this petal that's sort of hiding underneath. I'm pressing quite hard and I'm just going to fill that in with my darker purple because it's in the shadow of the one behind. Exactly the same as before, and do a bit of feathering, slightly lighter touch going into the middle, and the same up here. I find as well, if I'm doing this, especially when you're working with quite small flowers like this, it's good to keep your pencil as sharp as possible. Now I know that's easier said than done with Prismacolors. They do blunt quite quickly because of how soft the leads are, but it just makes for much more precise colouring. Now you can see here again where this overlap is. I'm just bringing this darker purple all the way round, not as hard as I can press, but quite hard, because again that's going to be in shadow because it's tucked in behind the other petal. Just give this a nice blend. Don't worry too much if you aren't using Prismacolors, if you're maybe using a harder pencil like a Polychromos or a Crayola. If you still have quite a defined line between your dark purple and your light purple, it can actually be quite a nice effect and it has quite a nice impact, because again, if you look at any sort of flowers, you know, they do have patterns on them, or you know, quite defined lines. So don't be too worried about getting that absolutely blended away to, you know, next to nothing. So I've got my canary yellow again here, and I'm just going to do what I did before and leave that little white spot. But again, because I have this overlap from the other flower, I'm taking another pencil, which is my yellow ochre, which is PC 942, and again I'm making sure that I've got a really sharp point on this. I'm using my little Tegal multi-sharpener. I am a number 2 kind of gal. that's the pointiness I like. If you've not heard of these sharpeners, they basically give you anything from a really short stubby point, which is 1, to a very long thin point, which is a number 5, or anything in between. And what I've found is it's really good for Prismacolors, because if you have a shorter, stubbier point, you're less likely to get breakage, which these pencils are known for. If you fancy one of these sharpeners, I'll leave a link down below in the description to Amazon, where you can pick these up reasonably cheaply. It also has a closed setting. Now mine's not working very well, and I've figured out it's to do with heat. When it's cold, the plastic contracts and the little door doesn't shut over properly. I think you can just see that and no more. On a warmer day, I do find it snaps shut no problem, but obviously being in Scotland, it's not that warm any of the time, so it doesn't happen very often. Anyway, that aside, so all I'm doing here is, with my very sharp tip, just along the line of that petal, I'm just tickling in a little bit of that ochre to darken the yellow down a little bit. Now again, I'm not going to obsess over it, you know, and try and make it absolutely perfect, because it is quite a tiny space, but just enough there to give it that little bit of definition. And you can see even from that angle that it does look slightly darker, and it's all these little things that when added up to the bigger picture, that's what gives you, you know, a nice picture, is that sort of detail. Okay, so we've got one with a turned over corner here. Now it's up to you what you want to do with this. This is purely poetic license or artistic license, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to go for the lavender because it's going to stand out nicely next to the darker colour. And all I'm going to do is put that in at both of the corners and just leave a tiny, tiny white gap in the middle, like a sort of highlight. And when it comes to the other side of the petal, I'm just going to follow that liner, and I'm going to use my dark colour all the way round, because again that may create a shadow where it's folded over. And all I'm going to do is just lighten that up as quickly as I can on that top edge where it's folded over, and I can blend in my lavender as we've done before. Now you can see there, I'll take my pencil out my mouth, you can see there that that's come up absolutely fine, and again it's just given us that little bit of definition along that edge. So onward, now we're back to more straightforward petals here. This is one of these ones when you decide on a set of colours and the method in which you're going to colour in a particular object. The first one or two, you'll find that you're just finding your way, and then as you go along you'll find that you speed up. I am a painfully slow colourist, and I like to take my time. I don't see the need to rush, because everything else in my life is always rushed. You know, you're always pushing for deadlines and, you know, time. So it's nice to not have to worry about it. I like to take my time over these kind of things and get them just so, and get them the way I like them, because I've precious few opportunities to do that in life where I'm not being harassed by someone or something. So this is nice for me. Obviously, if I'm going too slow for you, you know what to do. You can skip through to the next part. I don't mind. I'm not going to be offended by that. But by the same token, I won't rush on the account of someone else's impatience. That's not going to happen. Okay, I've got quite a tight line here, and I just want to kind of smooth that out a bit, so just give it a little tickle with my Dahlia Purple again. Give it a tickle. Do my little yellow middle. Okay, so that's me now. I feel as if I'm getting into a bit of a rhythm, so I'll maybe start to speed up a little bit so you know, y'all don't get bored. I don't really have anything exciting to talk about this time. My life for the past few weeks has literally been my own work, which is time consuming and sometimes requires pretty antisocial hours. And when I've not been working at my own job, I have been outside helping my other half, because we have been lambing. We are still lambing, but we're nearly finished now. So every spare hour has been bottle feeding, helping out and doing the midwife bit, and in the meantime trying to keep my partner upright because he's working ridiculously long hours, and after a few weeks he begins to function more like a zombie than a human being. So I've got to kind of keep an eye on him and just try and help him out where I can, because I can see him starting to flag, and I know that, you know, it's just as well that it doesn't go on much longer, or else he'll fall asleep standing up. So I haven't really been doing an awful lot else besides working this last little while. Again, this is the same as before. This petal's kind of tucked in behind the other one, so I'm going to go all the way around with my dark purple rather than just round each side. And I'll just have a tiny spot of lavender in the middle. So yes, on top of the lambing situation, I have still been doing a lot of running. I've managed to get out of I always try and make time for myself, and aside from a creative pursuit, which I absolutely must have at all times or else I'll lose my marbles, I always make time to exercise. It's very, very good for your mental health to get fresh air and get some exercise and, you know, get your heart rate up and whatnot. So I have managed to more or less keep to some sort of running schedule, and now that the better weather's coming in, it's so nice, and it's very, very enjoyable indeed. So that's been good that I've managed to keep that up. But I'm getting to the point now where I'm not training for anything in particular this year, just because of the impending wedding. It didn't seem like a good idea to try and put that kind of pressure on myself. So, but I've still been working away, and I usually ramp down my mileage and things in the winter just because of the lack of daylight and obviously the absolutely atrocious Scottish weather. So it's starting to build back up now, and I'm starting to build my miles back up. So I'm getting into what I would call more serious running again. You know, I'm running maybe 30 miles a week now, which it's a substantial amount of running for someone that's not training for anything. But it's very, very enjoyable. I do like it, and I always, as I say, I try to make time for myself, and that's one of the things I love to do. So that's been quite good. And obviously I have been up to my ears in silly wedding things, and I am pretty much at the end of my tether in terms of that. I didn't want to have a sort of big traditional wedding. I wanted to run away somewhere warm and, you know, get married and have my honeymoon all in one go, and then just have a reception or a party when we got back. My other half disagreed, and he has quite a large, well, we both have large families, but he has a lot of siblings, and he just felt that he wanted them all to be able to be there on the day, so to speak. So I was persuaded into having a proper wedding, and yeah, and now I'm like, I don't want any of this, because it's just all the trivial things that stress you out, and I'm not stressed out about it. I'm quite laid back about it, but the big stuff is really easy. You know, you book your venue, you buy your dress, you know, you do all that, but that's the easy bit. Even though it's the most expensive part, it's the easy bit. It's when you get closer and closer to your wedding that you realise it's all the silly little things that pile up. And I mean, they really are, they're trivial. Like, no one's going to die if they don't get done, but they're just an absolute annoyance, and unfortunately that is the stage that I am at, and I kind of just want to be done with it all, to be honest. So you know, when we get into a sort of debate about things now, the classic line that's coming out my mouth just now is, "This, you wanted this wedding, not me." That doesn't go down too well. But I'm sure it will be worth it on the day. Yeah, and I'm sure we'll have a lovely time. We are just having a small wedding. We don't have a lot of guests. We have no evening guests. It is a very low-key affair. But again, I am more of a sort of low-key person. I like a quiet life. So the idea of having 200 people at my wedding just... no, that was never going to happen. So yeah, we're on with that, but it's getting close very, very quickly now, and I'm thinking, oh my word, when am I going to have time to do all this stuff? Thankfully, I have some wonderful family and wonderful in-laws as well, not just my side, and they're all really, really, you know, keen to help out where they can and if they can. So that's been absolutely lovely. So that's always something. So yeah, it's going to come in really quickly. We are, I'm just trying to count now, about 10 weeks away from the big day. So I am more excited though, and I've been telling everybody, I booked my honeymoon and we're not going on our honeymoon until September just because of farming restrictions. Basically harvest time kind of gets in the way of stuff, so we are honeymooning in September into October, and we are going to Mauritius. Now that I can get excited about. I can't wait. I would love a holiday right now, but it's going to be worth it. So yeah, that's quite exciting. Quite exciting. I'm looking forward to all the sunshine and the warm water and get away from Scotland and the unpredictable Scottish weather. And that's the problem with Scotland. You know, everyone says, oh, Scotland's such a beautiful country. Yes, it is. It's very green, but that's because we get a lot of rain. And on a nice day, it's a lovely place to be. Unfortunately, we never get a nice day. We'll get a nice 10 minutes. Or, you know, the weather's just really changeable. And I think that's the thing that irritates most Scottish people about Scotland. It's like, okay, if you're going to be sunny, stay sunny. Tell you what, stay sunny for like 3 days at a time and be warm. That would be lovely. Don't be sunny in the morning and then have a biting cold wind come to kick your ass at 3 in the afternoon, because we don't like it. There you go. I've just realised that I've already had a really good whinge about the Scottish weather in one of my other videos not that long ago. I should really stop complaining about it. I should be used to it by now. I've lived here long enough. But yeah, so that's one of the reasons why I'm looking forward to the honeymoon. Yeah, there's not, you know, oh, everybody thinks, you know, the wedding's exciting and all the rest of it, but there's only so much wedding chat I can take. I just realised I never did my dark purple in this this little leaf in here. Cheeky. So my life's not been terribly exciting late. Okay, so I'm just gonna pop in my little yellow crescents again, here and here. And that's us. Well, we've done a quarter of our ring of purple flowers. So I'm going to move down here now. I'm just going to move this book up, and we're going to do these bluebell type flowers. So the colours that I have for there are Sky Blue Light, PC 1086. Electric Blue, which is PC 1040. Now, I'd just like to point out at this particular moment, I think I've got like a sort of bum pencil. My electric blue does not lay down very well. It's almost as if there's too much wax and not enough pigment. So you may find if you do decide to use these colours and use what I'm doing as a guideline, you may not have to do as much with your electric blue as I do. I keep meaning to get another one open stock and test it out, but it's just one of those things. It's not a colour I use very often, so it's not really sort of top of the priority list. But maybe I'll get round to that after the wedding. And the final colour I have is True Blue, which is PC 903, and that I'm really using that to work against this electric blue that doesn't really seem to do much. I'm just going to give you a quick demonstration of this pencil on a piece of scrap paper to show you what I mean. Because generally the colour lay down for the blues in the Prismacolor set's pretty good. So that is my True Blue, and I'm hardly putting any pressure on the paper there at all, and it's going down quite nicely. But if I take this strange electric blue pencil and do the same thing next to it, there's hardly anything coming off, and it is supposed to be darker than that. If I press harder and go back, I mean, I'm pressing really, really hard to do that. So yeah, I don't know what's with that, but yeah, that again, that's my thing about the questionable quality of Prismacolor pencils. But hey, I still like them. Oh, obviously I still like them, otherwise I wouldn't be using them. I'm just having a quick sharpen here. If you have a look at this one, you can see that I have a tiny, tiny little bit of blending in this top sort of like nubbin part. And then obviously I have the body of the flower itself. So I'm going to go around and do all these little top parts. So I've got 1, 2, 3 here, and I'm going to do them first. And I just went straight from the True Blue into the Sky Blue Light, because again, these pencils are very soft and smooshy, and you know, you can actually skip a colour in a gradient and get away with it, especially when you're working in smaller areas like this. So starting at the bottom in here, just making sure you can see, I'm just going to put, again, medium pressure, that little line along there, and work up the way. Nothing fancy, nothing new, and just soften it out and leave that little sort of semicircle at the top there and go back and just kind of fill that in a bit. And then I'm taking my sky blue light and just little circular motions, so little scumbly motions. And I'm just adding that in at the top. Now again, this is one of those ones you can go back in with your darker pencil if you're not happy. It's entirely up to yourself. You know, that's the beauty of doing things like this. And I've said it before, you can give the same set of coloured pencils to 3 different people and get them to colour the same picture, even using the same colour combinations in the same order, and they will not turn out the same. And that's one of the things I love about colouring. And in with my sky blue light, smoosh it about a bit, make it pretty. And then this one up the top. I'm going to turn my book slightly so that you can still see. There we go. And that blue looks lovely next to the bright orange and red of the flower behind it. That looks fab. That's what we like. Okie dokie. I kind of debated, because there is this line drawn into these flowers, whether to do that bottom part in a different colour, or even, you know, just sort of stop the gradient there and use the darker colour. And I just think I don't know, I just decided that it wasn't, I just didn't want to do it. So what I did do in this bottom part is I used a really heavy pressure underneath the stripe, basically where that line is. I used a really, really heavy pressure with my sky blue light. And when you see it close up with the naked eyeball, perhaps not so much on camera, you will see a difference between that part and the gradient part above it. I always find with the paler colours, they don't show up quite the same on camera, but so you'll just have to take my word for it. Okay, when working with your gradient, it's up to you which way you want to go. A lot of people will go dark to light. I chop and change between the two. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down a light colour till just about halfway up here. Again, I have this issue with fighting with my electric blue pencil, so that is part of the reason that I'm doing this. And I'm going to take my electric blue, and I would say to you to use a light pressure. I am not using light pressure, I am using quite heavy pressure just to get some of this down on this damn paper. Again, I will go back over this several times, and you probably find if you use the same colours and you have a normal pencil that you won't have to, so just bear that in mind if you are following along. I would be interested to know, for those of you that are watching, how many of you are following along, either using exactly the same colours or whether you're using your own colours and I'm just sort of on in the background. It's something that I like to do. Is when I'm just colouring by myself, you know, when I'm not filming, I do like to have a colouring video on in the background, you know, from a number of people, not any particular YouTuber, but it's something I just quite enjoy having on in the background. And I'm just wondering now, maybe I have become that background, which is kind of weird but kind of cool at the same time. So if you are a person that follows along, or someone who likes the background noise, I would love to know that. I'm quite curious about that. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you use my videos for either of those things. If you are following along and you want to finish this picture, I would love to see any of the finished results. And what you can do is, if you are on Instagram, you can pop it on Instagram and use the hashtag #theColourCave. I will put that down in the description for you as well. And because I have started using that hashtag when I am posting my pictures on the Colour Cave Instagram page, so I can follow that hashtag, and it means I'd get to see all your work, which would be really nice as well. So I would love to see any of the finished articles, regardless of whether they're using the same colours or not. It's always nice to see pretty artwork. I'm going to do this one up here, and then I'm going to talk a bit about the overlap of this one. Again, really hard pressure on this bottom section, If I was using darker colours, I would put like a patch of a highlight in perhaps, but because this sky blue light is such a pale colour, it just kind of gets lost. So I've just gone for block colouring in that bottom section. And again, I'm back to medium pressure. I've just realised I've started the wrong one. I've just gone completely against what I said I was going to do. Right, over here. Goodness me. I'll pop that in there. Right, so we're still with the sky blue light and I am medium pressure and I'm going halfway up. I am doing this in the individual sections because again with Prismacolor pencils, they are very opaque, and if you go back and forth all the way across, it starts to white out the line work. And again, that's okay. If you don't mind that, then that's fine, but it's something that kind of, I don't know, it kind of bugs me a little bit, so I like to do it section by section. And in with the electric blue, my 10 million layers to try and get it to do something. And up at the very top, really firm pressure right in at the very peak of the flower, and then gradually I'm going to bring this down and lighten up my pressure as I go and start to blend it in with my almost non-existent electric blue. I really like the blue next to the red and the orange. I'm really pleased about that. That was a good colour choice. That makes me happy. And I've managed to retain my original idea of keeping the colours quite vibrant as well. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with the way this is turning out. I have to say I'm not always the best at picking, you know, complementing sets of colours. I have had a few absolute doozies in the past where I've just thought, what were you thinking, woman? What did you do that for? I do try and spend a little bit of time and pick carefully, but it doesn't always work out that way. Again, it's a thing that comes with practice and comes with time, I think. Okay, so back down here to this one that's overlapped. Using the same principle as we did with the purple flowers, I'm just going to take my electric blue. Now this is probably going to work in my favour, that this isn't laying down as you know, as vibrantly as it should. And in this bottom band that I've just coloured in, right in at the corner here, I'm just going to tickle in a little bit of my electric blue, just in that one corner. And again, that's just to show the bit of the shadow and the overlap of the one that's in front of it. So it's just a tiny little bit. I don't even think you can see that on camera, can you? It is there, I promise. Can you see it now? Maybe a tiny bit? Okay, anyway. Very, very lightly with the sky blue light this time. I'm going to do as I did before. Just go halfway up, but with a much, you know, like barely touching the paper sort of pressure. And again, just with the electric blue, I'm going to bring that right down to there. I wouldn't, you know, in the other ones I haven't brought it down that far, but with this I'm kind of using it as a shadowy effect. So again, I mean, I use a light pressure. I'm not, but if you're going to do this, use a light pressure. You can go back in and darken it up. So I'm just going to join that up with where I would be putting my electric blue normally, which is around here somewhere. It's all very scientific and precise, this, you know. And start at the top with my true blue, heavy pressure, and bring it down to join the electric blue. And go back in and just start blending it out a little bit. There we go. Join that up with my little bit of shading I've got there. Can you see how patchy that's gone? There's like blobs of pigment in this one. It looks really uneven. That is my dodgy pencil that is doing that. It's incredibly irritating. I say, if it was a colour I used more often, I would probably have bought another one open stock by now, but see, it's not a colour that I tend to reach for. Maybe one of the reasons for that is because this pencil is the way that it is. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe subconsciously I'm like, nah, don't use that one. Okay, so I'll just finish off a bit more blending with my sky blue light. And there we go. That's starting to look quite pretty. As I said at the beginning of the video, I'm just going to do this half, and I'm going to colour this half exactly the same way, just as we've done, but I'm going to do it in my own time. I'm sure you guys can manage that too if you are following along. I am aware of the length of the videos, and I did have a comment from somebody who said they are happy to sit and watch for about a half hour, but they wouldn't want to do much more than that. So I know everyone's different, and again, as I was saying before about the difference between people actually following along and people who like videos on in the background. If you're a person that wants it for background when you're colouring something yourself, you're happy to have those videos like an hour or maybe even longer. I know I am. But when it's actually an instructive video, not that I meant this to be instructive, but I'm aware that some people do want to follow along, it can be quite tedious, especially when you're doing something repetitive, you know, if there are a lot of the same flowers or whatever. You know, you're not going to want to sit through an hour of that, so maybe keeping the video to maybe a half hour, 45 minutes might be a good idea. How do you feel about time lapse? That's another question for you all if you want to leave me a comment. Once I've explained the initial, you know, stages of what I'm doing, would you want to see the rest of it coloured and just sped up? Any input in that would be greatly appreciated also. If you're happy with me just rambling on and scribbling away, then that's fine too. I'm easy going, I don't mind. Okay, so we've got another little overlap in this one here. So I'm just going to bring that purple out round about it, sort of outline it if you like. Bring in a little bit. And then just back to what we were doing before. Oh, that's good. Yeah, so the other thing that I will not do, I say I have been quite busy this last little while, and I haven't had a huge amount of time to sit down and colour, even just for myself, let alone you know, in a YouTube video. But I will do what will be the last part of this video sooner rather than later. I won't leave such a big gap between this part being posted and the final part, because I know that if you guys have started something, you'd want to finish it too, so I'll make sure that the videos are a little bit closer together next time. Hopefully that'll keep everybody happy. Oh, had a bit of a wobble there. I nearly went outside the lines, oh no. Yeah, I don't seem to be having the same problems with the tooth of the paper showing through as much with the purple as I did with the red and the orange last time. That's quite interesting. See, I'm not a person that has to have everything completely smooth 100% of the time anyway. I actually, generally, I don't use my blender pencil a terrible amount unless it is, you know, a particular type of paper. But it's quite odd that some of these pencils are laying down okay and others not so much. Just a quick sharpen again there. Little half moon of canary yellow. That's better. Get the rest of these little purple flowers done. And we'll do our final two bluebells up here, and I think we'll stop after that. And in the next video, oh my goodness me, in the next video we can tackle the leaves and the vines, and that will be more or less the picture complete. I am toying with the idea of maybe putting in a very sort of pale washed out halo on the inside of these flowers, but I haven't quite decided if I am, and if so what colour it would be. So I'll have a little think about that over the next few videos and I'll let you know. Sometimes I think it helps to see everything else coloured in first and just see what it looks like, because sometimes I've had a notion to put in, you know, some sort of background colour, even if it is very, very pale, once I've finished a picture. But when I've coloured the majority of it, I've sort of looked at it and gone, it doesn't really need it. And sometimes when you do that, it can take away from, you know, the main features of the picture, and you're not necessarily making it look bad, but you're not adding any value to the piece, so to speak. So sometimes it's kind of like less is more, but again, that's one of those things you have to use your own judgment and your own preference. You know, everybody's got different ideas about what looks nice and one thing and another. So the main thing is, as long as you're happy with it, that is what matters. No one's going to turn around and say, oh my goodness, you've ruined a picture because you've put a background in. It's something I hear so much. Everyone gets really obsessed and fixated on their backgrounds, and I keep saying, it doesn't matter because it's a background. If people are paying attention to your background, then you've coloured your picture wrong, because the focal point should not be the background. Much as I like to be quite precise and, you know, have everything just so, see, when it comes to backgrounds, I am not like that at all. Background should enhance what's in the foreground. It should not be a focal point, or, you know, it doesn't need to be absolutely perfect. And you will find that when it comes to doing backgrounds, I tend to keep mine very, very simple for that reason. I'm like, don't complicate things any more than they already are. I have, however, seen some stunning backgrounds. There is a lady in one of the colouring groups that I am in, and her backgrounds are just amazing. And it's one of those ones when she posts a picture up, you're like, how the hell did you do that? She is a very talented lady. I love all of her pictures, and I tell her all the time that I love all of her pictures. She's very, very good at backgrounds. And she does most of them in pencil. You know, you can experiment. There's a lot of, you know, different media you can use for backgrounds, which incidentally I'll be doing a video on in the not too distant future. But this lady, I mean, it's all pencil. The amount of patience she must have to, you know, to sit and you know, work away in sort of large areas with pencil, it's just astounding. I certainly would not have that amount of patience, I'm afraid. But yeah, as I say, that's one of the things, you know, I see most frequently is people fretting over backgrounds. So I thought it might be nice to do a video on different media and show the differences that, you know, the things that you can create with them for a background. Just really so that people can decide, or help people to make a decision on what they, you know, what they want to do for a background. So yes, we'll explore that in a video at a slightly later date than now. One thing that has been on my mind quite a lot this last week or so in relation to my wedding, but also in relation to art, is when we go to get married, we are going to be about a 2.5 hour drive from home. So we're going to be away from home, and we're going to be away for the whole weekend. And amongst all the things for the wedding, I'm going to have to take some art supplies with me. And I am pondering what to take, how much I should take, how much time am I going to have to colour. Probably on my actual wedding day, the answer to that is 0. You know, I'm not going to be able to do it on my wedding day, but the surrounding days, we are away for a few days. So I'm like, oh, what do I take with me? I'm like, do I take everything? I was like, I can't take everything. So I'm trying to sort of whittle down what, you know, my everyday supplies that I use, and decide what I should and shouldn't take with me. I did also contemplate making a video while I was away as well, and my partner just shook his head and he's like, you've got something wrong with you. He says, if you want to draw and colour, he says, it's absolutely fine. But really, it's like, yeah, it's a very inspiring spot. We are in the middle of a forest in a sort of stately home. It's the windows, the windows are like 12 feet high, and when you look out of those windows, you're into this lovely rolling, you know, forest, and it's one of those windows I look out and I think, God, that makes me want to draw something. It makes me want to draw, you know, what I can see in front of me. So I'm thinking that I'm going to have to take a sketchbook and, you know, some sort of drawing implements. But that's easy enough, because I do, when I'm sketching, I do tend to sketch just in graphite. I'm not a huge fan of adding a lot of colour, so that's fine. But obviously I want to take some of my colouring stuff with me as well, and it's that debate about what to take. I am open to suggestions. Somebody did say to take postcards. I don't know how keen I am on that idea, if I'm honest. I think I would want to take one of the books that I'm actually, you know, that I'm working in. But the question is, what book? What do I take? And do I try and squeeze in a video while I'm away, just for fun? Yeah, open to suggestions, guys. Any comments on that, welcome. Always appreciate the input. I just get the feeling that if I only take a limited supply of pencils, you know, say I pick out, I don't know, 36 colours from one of my sets of pencils, I'm going to get, you know, to wherever it is I'm settled down and start colouring, and I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I can use such and such a colour, and then I'm like, oh, I don't have that. Is that going to happen to me? Do I just take the whole set? Do I just do it? I'm not really keen on taking my Prismacolor pencils, just because they you know, they break easily. I don't think them being, despite being in a case, I'm not really keen on the idea of them getting battered about. They don't need any help to break any more than they already do, so I'm thinking if I do that, I'll maybe have to be the polychromos that go with me. That might be an idea. I'm wondering if you can hear the noise outside. Can you hear that sort of horrible rumbling sound? There we go. That was Mr. Jem and his tractor bringing back his cattle float. Today some of the younger cows, or I'll say cows, the cattle, the younger cattle, have been given a new pasture, and it's along the road a bit, so we can't walk them along, we have to transport them. And they've got some nice fresh grass in a nice field where they're going to get a bit of sun and there's a bit of shade for them. So that was him just taking the last of them along there and making sure they were settled down okay and they were happy. So that's nice. I had great fun last week. We put our cows and calves out to pasture. They have been housed all winter. Again, we're not renowned for particularly good winters, and we do calve our cows over the Christmas period. So the calves that were born in December and January have never been in a field, and it is singularly one of the most fun and amusing things to watch. The cows love it too. Obviously the cows know, because it happens every year, that when the weather starts to change, they know that they're going to get outside, and they absolutely love it too. It's quite amusing. You know, all of us sentient creatures, we do have the same sort of feelings. I know that people say that cows aren't very intelligent, and generally they're not, but in the winter when the weather's starting to get bad, you know that they want to come inside, that they want the shelter and they want the warmth. But when the weather starts to turn again, you can see that they're desperate to get out. So when the cows and calves went out, the calves have never been out in a field, and I'd just been out for a run, and my partner waited until I was back from a run before he put them out so that I could go and help him and watch. And it is absolutely hilarious, because at first the calves, when you get them out of the shed, they get kind of frightened because they're in this big open space and they want to try and get back in the shed. And the cows start mooing at them as if to say, come on, no, you've got to come with me, look, this is going to be fun. And you've got to kind of chase them, you know, out of the shed and try and shut the gate so that they don't go back in. And the mums disappear because they know what's happening. They know there's tasty grass out there. And then they get all upset because the calves won't come with them. But once they actually get into the field, they kind of stop in the gateway and they look about as if to say, wow, look at all this space. And once a couple of them realise that their mothers are quite calm and happy, they're suddenly like, oh, okay, this is good. And then they sort of, what my partner calls their giddy knickers on, they get their giddy knickers on and they start running about, and they're like absolutely flat out galloping, and they stick their tails straight up in the air and cows have got like a little tufty bit at the end of their tail, and it looks like a flagpole with a flag flapping in the breeze on the end of it. It's absolutely hilarious, and they run about in groups of like maybe 2 or 3, and they chase each other up and down this big open space. It is singularly the funniest thing to watch, but it's so nice to see them out in the open air in the nice weather. So that served my amusement. The cows love it too as well though, because they go out and they have a canter about as well, usually just for a couple of seconds, and then they're like, hey, okay, that's enough. And they rub their heads in the grass, you know, as if they've got like an itchy forehead, and they rub their faces in it, and they all get dirty faces, and then they start munching. So it's a really nice, it's one of my favourite things about the farm actually, is when the cows go out in the springtime. It has been late this year just because of the adverse weather that we've had, so it's so nice to see them out, and as I say, watch the calves in their first sort of foray out into the big bad world. They're really good fun. So yeah, that was quite nice last week. Alright, I think I'm done with the purple flowers. That looks about half to me. And I'm just going to go up here and we're going to quickly do these, and then that'll be us done for today. When I'm finished, I'll zoom out and you can see I would say the finished product, you know what I mean, the finished product to date that's not finished. Okay, so I'm just going to, I need to turn this around somehow, that's better. So I'm taking my True Blue, which is the darkest blue that I'm using, and heavy pressure down at the bottom and gradually getting lighter as I work my way up, and I'm just leaving that tiny little white bit at the top there, and I'm going to do the same with this one just while we're here. A little brush out as well, and then I'm taking my Sky Blue Light, which was my palest pencil. I'm just blending it in with the darker colour, smooth that out a little bit. Now down to these bottom parts, and heavy pressure in these little sections just to get some colour down. I say it is very pale, so I'm just going straight in there, block colour. I'll just do this one while I'm here as well. There we go, I'm happy with that. Now we have no overlaps or anything here, so I'm just going to go in medium pressure and take the Sky Blue Light halfway up, just the same as I did before. I probably don't need to tell you guys this, you got the hang of this by now. I'm sorry, I don't want to be patronising. That's something that I really don't like, so I'm sorry if anybody feels patronised. It's not my intention. Okay, and here is my electric blue, my slightly gammy electric blue. There we go. I don't know if that's a Scottish word or a British word, or if something is gammy. I don't. Does anybody else use that? If something's gammy, it's either a bit broken or it doesn't work properly. We often talk about a gammy leg. If someone has a gammy leg, they're lame. They've hurt their leg, or they maybe walk with a limp. Gammy. Yeah, I must find out about that. Again, if anybody wants to leave a comment on gamminess, then please feel free. I'm amazed at the number of people that have left comments on my videos saying, "We love your accent." I think that is the most hilarious thing ever. There's not a lot of Scottish YouTubers, I have noticed that, and generally outside of the UK, when people think of a Scottish person doing YouTube, they would think of someone like Johanna Basford, and if you listen closely, Johanna's accent and my accent are not similar, and it's the same in with any sort of regional accent, because a lot of people that in the UK can't differentiate between different American accents, or even worse, they can't tell the difference between a Canadian and American accent. So obviously there are regional differences, but in a study that was done some time ago, they found that people on the telephone in the UK felt they could trust someone with a West Coast Scottish accent more than any other, and that is where my accent comes from. So maybe that's why everybody seems to like it. I know we're quite easy to understand. The area itself, I don't want to say we're well spoken because that sounds really snobby, that's not what I mean, but there are a lot of areas in Scotland where there's a lot of slang and colloquialisms used, and it can make for really difficult interpretation if your ear isn't attuned to it. My partner is English and he has been living in Scotland for, I don't know, maybe, I was going to say it must be like 14 or 15 years now, and there's certain places that we go to and he still has to ask me what's been said, just because of the regional difference in the accent and the words that are being used. So I take that as a compliment. Thank you very much to everyone who has said that. It's a really nice thing to say. I'm just really glad you can understand me, because I was worried that I maybe wouldn't be understood, and that wouldn't be much good for doing this. Okie dokie, let's zoom out. There we go. So that's looking pretty nice. I'm really pleased the bluebells have turned out. I really like the gradient. I think it's lovely. And it's going to go nice with maybe some green in the vines and leaves, which we will tackle next time in the next video. So I hope that has been useful to you all today, and you've gotten something out of it, or I've provided some good background for you while you're colouring something else. If you like this video, please take the time to give it a thumbs up. We are still a very small channel and we would like to get a little bit bigger, and the thumbs always help. If you haven't subscribed and you like what you see, please feel free to hit the subscribe button. I do put out a new video every Monday and Friday. Sometimes it's colouring, sometimes it's art supplies, or a bit of drawing. I try to balance it as much as possible so that there is something for everyone. As I said before, please feel free to leave a comment on any of my ramblings, or if you have any questions, I'll get back to you. I do always answer all my comments. And thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time in the Colour Cave. Bye bye.